Boom. All right, time for another What Does Victor Think About? Politics and Justice for March 9th and the preceding week. So, what is on your mind?
Politics and justice?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's Bernie Sanders and his comeback.
Well, yeah.
He was
He
down.
has defied the poll numbers in Michigan.
Well, not just defied them. He was down 30 points and managed to win.
Only in some polls. Most polls, he was only down about 20 points.
Yeah, 20 points. No, that was a huge upset. If people are kidding, this is one of the biggest statistical
You're
upsets.
completely breaking up there, at least on my end.
This is one of the biggest statistical upsets in history. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but you're all bubbly and burbly and
Can you hear me properly now?
less burble, more static.
Now?
Hasn't really changed.
Now?
Still hasn't changed.
Okay, I'm talking directly into the microphone here.
Yeah, and it's not really working.
Hello? Is this working better?
Not at all.
How about now?
Have you tried plugging it in, unplugging and plugging it in again?
That is exactly what I'm doing. So my microphone isn't working too well.
I know it might only be on my end, but yeah.
If it's on your end, it's on everyone's end. How about now?
No, that seems to have worked.
Ah, yes, now I see what's happened. It's that someone changed the settings on my computer to go to the old, absolutely crap microphone my mother likes to use.
Okay. Well, I suggest you unplug that one and keep it unplugged. Anyway, yes, there was a massive upset in Michigan where apparently all the pollsters decided because they have a hard time contacting young people with cell phones that they weren't going to come out and vote.
Oh no, I don't think it's that. That's too big of a point difference for just young people. They didn't realize we're going to come to vote. No, it really I think was Hillary Clinton's terrible debate performance over the weekend.
Really, most of the commentators actually thought she won that debate.
Yeah, and a lot of the commentators are full of crap. No, I'm sorry. She lost badly. Maybe not in what was actually being discussed, but just the moment Bernie Sanders was able to go to her and say, I'm sorry, I'm talking, that moment, you could see on her face and in the crowds and in people that she had just lost a whole bunch of support.
Well, actually, the next thing she said after their exchange, when she completely interrupted them and then talked about jobs, she actually got a huge cheer out of the crowd.
Yeah, that's true, but in the general public, it was holy shit, you got burned.
Well, admittedly, she was a lot more aggressive in that debate. I mean, Bernie Sanders is expected to be sort of a crotchety old guy, and towards after that initial exchange, they were pretty much talking over each other.
Look, At this
But that's
point,
a moderator problem because apparently the moderators are too scared to actually discipline people who could be potentially the next president of the United States.
more than that, like, I'm sorry, but at this point, with the way the election's been going, Hillary Clinton could announce that she is the Joker, come out on stage in face paint, and state that her new campaign pledge is to put a little more chaos into the world, and commentators would still gush over, wow, I like her new direction and how brave it is, and say she'd win the debate. Just like,
Well, that would be something new and different.
yeah. But that doesn't necessarily reflect reality. And the reality was, she did not, like, let me take a look right quickly. Bernie Sanders, what is it? I'm talking. Let's see, how many views has I'm talking gotten? In 2 days, excuse me, I'm talking on CNN Breaking News has gotten over 300,000 views. 300,000 views for that clip, not counting all of the others of that clip that are far smaller but are still there. Lots of people heard about this. People have come and watched it and saw what happened. In fact, let's look at the comments for a moment. Is there people actually saying that Bernie Sanders got burned here? Let me see. If you support Bernie Sanders, go to the polls and make a difference.
You're looking at a cut version of an exchange done by Bernie Sanders fans. I think the majority of the comments there are going to be about how great Bernie Sanders is.
CNN Breaking News.
Oh, you're talking about the CNN cut. Oh, I actually watched that, and that actually didn't make it look like it was entirely one-sided.
Fair enough, but still, the CNN cut, you look at the comments there, it's quite clear one group is coming up ahead over the other.
Yes, but that would go back to my youth theory, or actually more precisely other people's youth theory, because the majority of people who are active on the internet on the Democratic activist side are young and feel the burn. Whereas Hillary Clinton's supporters tend to trend older and less internet savvy, which is why she gets away with some of her sort of fear mongering on the internet and how it's possibly going to threaten you.
All right, there's a possibility, but at the same time, even the polls that took into account the youth vote did not expect such a landslide for Bernie Sanders. Just by the traction this debate got and certain clips from the debate got, no. Things have turned remarkably towards Sanders.
Not remarkably. I mean, Michigan was an astounding success, but he still lost Mississippi.
That's true, but he now has momentum. He now has another surprise victory on his belt, and right now we can't trust any of the polls because clearly there's been a massive shift.
Oh, yes. No, the current polling methodology does not seem to be terribly effective.
Not only that, but once you factor out the superdelegates, Hillary's lead over Sanders isn't that great. It's only that great when you factor in all of the superdelegates that are speaking for her.
Well, yeah, but the fact is, I mean, barring something incredible occurring, all of the super delegates are going to vote the way that the party establishment wants them to vote.
If he ends up getting the majority of regular delegates, and the party establishment super delegates still vote for Hillary, there'll be a riot on the floor.
Well, there you do have a point. They might not actually have, well, if it's really, really close, as in only a few delegates difference in the actual not exactly elected, I guess you say elected delegates, then I think they'll feel perfectly safe in a few of them going for Bernie, but the majority of them going for Hillary and saying, well, that's the way it works.
There'll still be a riot on the floor.
I think they'll control who gets to be on the floor. Remember also that the delegates, even Bernie's delegates, are chosen by the party.
That's true.
So most of Bernie's delegates aren't Bernie loyalists. They're party loyalists.
That is also true.
I mean, they're obligated, at least for the first vote, I think, to vote for the candidate that they were elected to represent. But other than that, they're establishment people.
That's true, but again, even if there isn't a literal riot on the floor, it will be a huge controversy.
Oh, yes. The internet backlash will be horrendous. In fact, there's going to be a bit of an internet backlash no matter how it goes if Hillary wins. But if that is the case, or effectively they are seen to subvert the democratic process, then yes, there will be a huge backlash. They'll get some really nasty comments. And they'll find out what this whole internet harassment thing has been about.
Yes, they will.
And yes, no, this puts some new life into Sanders' campaign, and they have to go through at least another cycle of delegate contests before they can once again try and declare Sanders dead.
Yes.
And if he manages to pull this off again, and again, and again, then he might even become the nominee. But the thing is, although he polled a lot better with blacks and other minorities than the pollsters were initially thinking he would, he's still way down there under Hillary.
We need to see where the new polling data is going to come in, because it looks like there has been a change in the race and people have changed their minds. How much they have changed their minds and where they have changed their minds, that's going to come up. But you're right. Even if it is a significant change towards Sanders now, Hillary's still ahead in regular delegates. But we don't know how much it's changed. And it'd be quite possible that Hillary needs to do something to get back on top of things.
Other than hiring a much better debate coach, I'm not sure what she can really do. I mean, the message is out there. She has the "I'm with you, but I'm going to do it the safe way" message. And Sanders has "I believe what I believe and I'm going to do it" message. And that's pretty much the message.
Well, the thing that she has to do, in my opinion, is that she has to start issuing hard policy points, what she's actually going to do as president.
While I think she effectively should be put in a position, and all the candidates should be put in a position where they have to do that or look like incompetent fools, doing that on your own initiative never helps candidates. Taking positions generally hurts them.
It's helped Donald Trump a lot. It's helped Ted Cruz a lot.
Not really.
Let's see. Trump is in first place, and he's taken a lot of policy positions.
Like Cruz, what?
I will build a wall. His tax plan.
That's not a policy position. That's a slogan.
His tax plan.
Okay, but he hasn't really pushed that in any of the debates.
Well, he has issued his tax plan. He has issued his healthcare plan. He has
That's
issued.
not a healthcare plan. That's a point review of things he thinks should be done.
Either way, he's issued these things. Cruz has issued his stuff. Rubio is the one that has been kind of indicating sort of what he would do as president. And how many delegates does Rubio have? Oh, look, 151.
I really don't think that has anything to do with the number of points PowerPoint presentations on his webpage.
Either way, Rubio, who has issued no policy, well, very few, if any, policy points, is at the bottom. Well, maybe not the literal bottom, but close to it. And Trump and Cruz are ahead.
Look, none of them have done what used to be the common thing, which was, although they occasionally mouth off about what they would do in their first 100 days, none of them have come out with a comprehensive plan, including a budget that they want to propose for their first 100 days in office. Hopefully the whoever is the actual candidate for the Republicans and Democrats will be pushed into doing something like that during the actual presidential campaign. But their plans so far have been full of lovely, vague generalities.
Yes. Fine, they haven't gone that far, but still, with Trump, you have a pretty good idea what you're voting for. With Cruz, you have a pretty good idea what you're voting for. Clinton and Rubio, their message is effectively safe, safe, safe. We're safe, and we don't rock the boat.
No, Clinton, you're pretty sure what you're voting for. She's Hillary Clinton. She's been Secretary of State. She's been a political figure for a long time. She's basically rather hawkish on foreign policy and rules as a sort of moderate to even slightly conservative-leaning Democrat when in power.
All right, fine. Then you can make the same argument with Rubio. You know how he's going to be because he's been senator for a while. And that he's been a part of the Jeb Bush administration.
Actually, not really. I mean, he's been a senator for not a particularly long period of time. He doesn't have any really big signature legislation, which has been his initiative that has been passed. And under the Jeb Bush administration, yes, he was under the Jeb Bush administration.
Okay, still.
He's a bit of an unknown. I mean, he's a charismatic, pretty guy who makes lots of structured sound bites, which sound good, and then he tries to hammer them home over and over and over again.
All right. Hillary Clinton was, what, a senator for 6 years?
Actually, her senatorial record barely matters at all. What matters is what she did while she was in the Clinton administration, where she attempted to get healthcare legislation through in a rather ham-fisted way with lots of secrecy.
Around for that.
And then her public appearances where she, invoked, grand right-wing conspiracies as for why her husband was being accused of sleeping with a 20-year-old. And she's made lots of policy statements when she's been in and out of politics or involved in the Clinton Foundation or just being interviewed on television or giving speeches. She has a long political record. And as Secretary of State, she actually was given a certain amount of initiative. And, when she did clash with the Obama administration, it did tend to get leaked to certain news sources.
Right, but still, in actual hands-on running things, she was a senator for 1 term, I believe. And she was Secretary of State for 3 years?
I believe it was a full term. But what's your point? None of them have been president before. We don't know what they're actually going to be like as president, but some of them have been a lot closer to the president and been dealing with presidential policies for a lot longer than other ones.
Well, my point is, Rubio has been in the Senate a lot longer than she has. Oh yeah, actually no, she was in a term and a half for the Senate. She was there for about 8 years. Oh, she was succeeded by Christine Gillibrand. Didn't know that. Yes, and she served the term as Secretary of State. But yeah, no, like her political experience, aside from a short stint as senator and as Secretary of State, is for a short period of time. The only thing else is basically that she is Bill Clinton's wife.
Yes, and has a long history of involvement of, when he was being governor of a state and having various political offices at the time.
All right.
She is about as well-known a political figure as the United States has.
All right. So she doesn't need to take policy positions and what she'll do as president.
I think she should take policy positions, and she does need to take policy positions. It's just generally the political thing to do is make them as general as possible so people can interpret them in the best light right up until you have to actually implement them.
All right. Well, I think she needs to do at least that, or else Sanders might have a chance of actually winning.
Well, she probably should pick a signature issue that she can actually use as a wedge against Sanders. The problem there is she needs to pick a signature issue which she can then carry on into the general election without damaging her versus the Republicans. Right now, the sort of signature issue she's chosen is I'm competent and can get things done.
And for a little while, she was trying to go, I'm a woman.
Well, there's always going to be some of that. I mean, that's sort of more of a dog whistle type thing, which you just keep, well, it's sort of obvious. You just casually remind people of it every so often so that they remember that you're a woman and could be the first woman president of the United States, which is a big deal to a bunch of people. Man.
Either way, though, I think that there's a good chance. We have to see what the new poll numbers are, but she could be in trouble. And, well, otherwise, Donald Trump is well on the road to becoming the Republican nominee.
Well, I think what's going to happen is the party's going to rally around her. The donors are going to rally around her, especially the financial ones. And probably you're going to see an expanded advertising blitz using some of the money they're expecting to run against a Republican to actually run against Sanders.
Yeah, no, they'll probably do that. I'm not sure that's the best move and if that's going to actually work. As Trump has demonstrated, money doesn't actually seem to mean that much in the world of politics anymore.
Actually, I think it's sort of as Jeb Bush has demonstrated, that almost unlimited financing does not get you anywhere.
Fair enough.
If the candidate doesn't work. But yes, Trump has also demonstrated that effectively leveraging your persona and using the press sort of against themselves in a sort of press judo act is far more effective than simply spending millions and millions of dollars. So yes, this campaign has shown that there is a very definite limit to how much money can buy you.
Yes.
Politically, anyway.
No.
Especially when people are pissed off.
Yeah.
But yes, no. Overall, I do agree with your point. I think Bernie Sanders has demonstrated that he is not somebody they can effectively sort of ignore and just run over and there's a nice little speed bump on their road to the White House. They're now going to actually have to take him seriously and actually deal with him and possibly do an actual policy debate where they can point out that some of Bernie's policies are effectively unworkable. they cost too much, and they'll never get through Congress. Not even a Democratic-controlled Congress will pass some of the things he really wants to do.
But they have a couple of problems there. One, they have a problem where they've been dog whistling and kind of trying to appeal to the hard left a lot, especially in this campaign season. And a real attack on Sanders and his ideas would be an attack on the very people they've been sucking up to.
Yes, well, that's the problem. That's the other thing which screwed up the Republicans. They really, really wanted the Trump supporters and wanted to woo the Trump supporters into at least some of them staying on and voting for a Republican. And in the course of it, they allowed Trump to effectively, looks like, win the nomination.
Yeah.
And that is the thing. I mean, socially, they don't have to hit their hard left social people as hard, but their hard left economic people, yeah, if they actually go after Sanders and his actual weaknesses, the same weaknesses that the Republicans would hit him on if it's a race between him and them, then they will alienate some of the more socialist-leaning Democratic voters.
Yeah.
And they really don't want to do it if they can possibly avoid it. They want to have a lovely, friendly campaign where Hillary is just the electable one, and Sanders is, oh, that guy, he has such great ideas. Too bad he will never be able to implement them. But I can get something done, so vote for me.
Yes. And, well, that's not going to happen at this rate.
Well, we'll see. I mean, Sanders now has a really big shot. But he needs to carry it forward into the next few races. He needs to maybe not win, especially southern states, but placed a lot better than he has been doing. And then they'll actually have to come up with a strategy which is actually against him.
Well, that's the thing, right? Here, if Sanders, things have turned at least temporary for Sanders, it's a similar problem that they have with Trump. Like, in a way, a lot of the races up till now don't matter. In a way.
In a way.
Because you could split the delegates, and we're coming up to the real big ticket states, which have a bunch of delegates, and are winner take all.
Yes, no, it's once you start hitting the really big states, you start hitting your Floridas, your Californias, even to some extent, actually Ohio, which will bring us to the Republican case and Kasich's actual chance of actually winning something. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, we're coming up on the actual deciders. These are all, although usually in most campaigns it becomes clear who's going to win by this time and everybody else drops out. At this point, no, we have some real races and some people who really don't want to drop out.
Okay,
and we're going to have to go to the big states.
With the big states, Trump's won. He's won. It's quite clear he's going to be the nominee.
I think it's very likely that he'll be the nominee.
Outside of him revealing that he's Lex Luthor.
I don't think that would hurt him. In fact, I think that would increase his vote.
And announcing his policy position to kill Superman.
I still don't think that would hurt him.
And Batman.
All right, that might hurt him a little.
Really? Superman dead, but not Batman?
People
really?
don't really like Superman. He's just too goody two-shoes, too perfect, too sort of Deus Machina, Mary Johnny Sue character a lot of the time. There's a reason why people like Batman. He's sort of flawed, a bit of an asshole, and he's just a human who has a lot of money and really, really, really good training.
All right, right. But short of that, he's going to freaking win.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a bit of a turnaround. Let's see. Kasich has been given hope. Almost all of Rubio's hope has been taken away from him.
Yeah.
Cruz, mind you, has actually did better than was expected.
Not good enough.
And there's been a new wave of celebrity campaigning to have everybody stop voting for Trump.
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
Actually, have you read the little Louis C.K. Thing about Trump being Hitler and we're Germany in the 30s?
Yeah, and it's total bullshit.
Actually, I think some of it he actually has a point, although he
Oh, yeah.
keeps sort of roaming between a whole bunch of us just want to see the world burn, and we're willing to elect somebody because we're just so pissed off of everything which has been going on. We've accepted the cynicism of the world, and then arguing that it's conservatives who need to pick a conservative candidate, and those are two different groups of people. The people who are, I mean, some of them are conservatives. The Trump supporters who are there because basically they've bought into the nihilist idea that the whole thing is corrupt. Let's just elect somebody who's going to do something for once and isn't part of this corruption, aren't made up of the regular conservative voters who vote for a conservative candidate in the Republican primaries.
Hmm.
Those are two different groups of people. Mind you, the part of his article where effectively he's saying that a whole bunch of people are pissed off and they're willing to elect somebody who will at least be entertaining in their news feeds and isn't part of the establishment, really isn't part of the establishment, that part actually shows some intelligence.
All right. In that sense, yes, some of his points are, I think, right. Overall, his and everyone else's argument that Trump equates to Hitler is bullshit.
No, and that's the problem. The press, when they're interpreting Louis' article, which, as I say, it definitely has some weaknesses, but apparently he was just writing it off the cuff after one of his internet episodes, all went with the Trump is Hitler aspect, when actually the main thrust of his article is Trump is only Hitler, really in the sense that we're Germany in the 1930s. We're pissed off. We feel like everything's going wrong, and we're willing to vote for somebody we'll know will shake things up, regardless of who they are. I mean, his real point was about the voters, the people who are voting for Trump. His real point wasn't that Trump is some sort of monster. In fact, I think towards the end, he makes it clear that he doesn't believe Trump is a monster. He's just a flawed human being. It's just we're the ones who are putting him in a position where he can do damage. And most of the press articles do not pick up on that at all. And that's the best point of his article.
Fair enough. And it is a decent point, but overall, I disagree people are voting for Trump just because he's entertaining. I mean, part of the reason is the Republican field this time around, while it had a lot of candidates in it, was really lackluster.
Yeah,
Really
well,
lackluster.
on the face of it, it wasn't. Cruz is a major figure in the Tea Party movement and effectively their leader in the Congress. Jeb Bush is a successful governor of one of the largest states. He has a Hispanic wife and in good connections with the Hispanic community, the fastest growing minority in the United States, and is from a political dynasty which has provided two previous presidents. Rubio is a little young. He's just a senator who has a good profile and has been able to give some good speeches. Kasich has an excellent resume. He just has no charisma whatsoever. So on the face of it, they all look good. It's just when it comes down to them actually saying, doing things and campaigning, none of them are very good at it.
No.
And I'm not
Jeb,
even dealing with some of the other candidates. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
theoretically, Christie, if he didn't have his fuck you, I'm going to close your bridge hanging over him, also looked like on paper a very good candidate.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Jeb Bush, one way or another, was going to have the baggage of his brother. And whoever was running the Jeb Bush campaign was a moron. Everything from Jeb exclamation mark. Because seriously, what the fuck was that? Uh, and so on was just terrible. His ads were terrible. His campaign was terrible.
Well, look, he's also just terrible at presenting himself. He's really not a good speaker.
No,
He's
he's not.
stuttery and he's halting. He seems to
Yeah,
need to collect his thoughts even when he's saying something which is obviously a pre-planned statement.
yes.
No, he's just not that good. I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with the policies or anything else. There's just how he presents himself. And the way his campaign spends its money was just not well thought out.
Yeah. Rubio has a similar problem, and but in a way worse because you didn't really understand who Rubio was unless you followed politics closely. Otherwise, you wouldn't get who he was, what he's done, and how he had a sort of master versus apprentice thing going with Jeb Bush.
Actually, if you paid a minor amount of attention, that was probably the only thing you knew about him.
Yeah.
Is he's Hispanic and he used to be Jeb Bush's apprentice in Florida, and now they don't like each other.
Yeah. Kasich is attached to the toxic pit that is Lehman Brothers.
Yeah.
And so on and so on and so on. But none of the
Cruz seems to have an absolute gift for pissing people off.
pissing people off and being a pathological liar.
Oh, I mean, I hear stories about him being a liar, and I have no reason to think they're not all they're all false. But on the campaign trail, he lies no more than any other politician. And in some ways, some of the positions he takes are quite respectable. The fact that he actually went to Iowa, told them, look, you're going to have to give up your corn subsidies. I'll just take away subsidies from everyone else as well. And then he won. That was actually laudable.
Fair enough. But still, it says something about someone when they have no friends in the Senate.
Yeah, when effectively he can't really bring anyone out there to any group of senators to publicly come out and say, no, Ted Cruz is a great guy. We really like him in the Senate.
Yeah. No, it's even worse, actually. Gee, we have to choose between Cruz and Trump. Huh. 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 That shows how much they don't particularly like Ted Cruz.
Oh, no. They really, really just don't like him. He's not well, one thing we know, whatever amount of lying he's been doing, is he is not a team player. During the Boehner run in the Senate, he basically took every opportunity to advance his own political position against the interests of the party getting anything done.
Yes.
I mean, there's a certain degree where it could have been, honestly, he didn't want some of these things done, but really, at certain points, they'd effectively won the debate and were about to get 90% of what they wanted. They just had to give up that little 10%.
And then he
still was blocking it.
Yep.
So, yes. No, I mean, unless there is literally some sort of Kasich miracle where he actually wins at least one of the big states, and I'm not just talking about Ohio, then it's not even going to go to a brokered convention. It's going to be Trump will have an outright majority.
Yeah.
Either that or somehow Cruz actually wins one of the big states because he got the bulk of the delegates from Texas.
But that was expected.
Yeah, but it also wasn't winner take. I don't think it was. No, it wasn't winner
It
take
was
all.
winner take all.
If it was winner take all, it would have actually made a huge difference. But he got that, and if he actually could spring one of the other major states, then that might be able to do it. But yes, right now, the big states look like they're going for Trump. The only thing they can hope right now is the polls on their races are just as bad as the polls on the Democrats.
Yes. Otherwise.
Or somebody shoots Trump.
Yeah, that would create basically a massive amount of riots throughout the United States.
Yes, but half of those riots would be celebrations.
Yeah, celebrations, and the other group of rioters, the ones with guns, come to kill those rioters. Look, Trump hate is way overhyped. People are, at this point, overall, they're making Trump to be far worse than he actually is.
Yes, but Trump still is effectively a classic narcissistic personality disorder.
Well, again, we could go into my great comparison of Donald Trump versus Justin Trudeau.
Well, once again, I have to disagree. Justin Trudeau actually has beliefs. They may not be well fleshed out. And is not the giant narcissist that Trump is, despite the press's attempt to idealize and fawn all over him.
Really?
Yes,
Justin Trudeau
really.
isn't a massive narcissist?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, really. You have very little evidence to go on that he is a massive narcissist.
How far do you want it to go to him being a massive narcissist? I think I have overall enough evidence that he's a massive attention whore.
So a politician.
What's the line where you go into mass narcissism?
Well, that would be the Donald Trump line.
What part of it is when you go to being a true narcissist?
That would be the part where anybody who makes the slightest criticism or even just says something which attacks your particular point of view on your own value and worth, and you react by belittling and attacking that person.
All right. I will give you that. Justin Trudeau, upon being elected, go on a massive tour across the world, spend more time in front of a camera rather than in Parliament. He promised $5 billion in aid to the rest of the world before a budget is even announced in Canada.
No,
will not belittle someone.
Those are just political maneuvering, some of which may have been somewhat excessive and or possibly naive.
Or he's a massive narcissist.
He has actually been attacked, and people have said unkind things about him, and he has not lashed out against them.
You're right. He has not gone that far. He's not Donald Trump, where the moment someone says something bad about him, he'll lash out. He has not gone that far. That far.
Well, anyways. So we have, yes. Well, since we're on to Canadian politics, apparently Canada wants to redesign its money again.
The tradition is, if you're going to put a woman on the Canadian bill, the tradition is that only prime ministers get to appear in Canadian money aside from the Queen. And the only
the reigning monarch, yes.
Yes, the reigning monarch. The only Canadian prime minister that was a woman in the Canadian historical records was Kim Campbell.
Yes, I'm not sure they want to put her on a bill.
Yes. So, and outside of her, I'm not sure who they would put on Canadian money.
Well, they've come up with a list of female candidates. Most of them were involved in the process of either getting the woman the vote or being like the first elected member of parliament.
Hey, the process of getting women to vote? Are they serious? Women got the vote in Canada because Prime Minister Borden wanted to rig the conscription vote in World War I.
Well, that's not how certain Canadian histories tell it.
He admits to it in his own memoirs.
Yes, but they can be perfectly free to believe that he is just attempting to boost his decision, the power of his decision making at that particular time.
I'm an evil, malevolent fuck, and here's why, as I write this memoir near my deathbed, to tell you what an evil, malevolent fuck I am?
But there have actually been another woman on the Canadian currency.
All right, who?
There is the generic female figure who is looking for a microscope and who, in the idea of the discovery of, what was it, penicillin or insulin? I can't remember. I think it was insulin. But anyway, there is a female figure, an unnamed female figure there, who was originally supposed to be Asian. But then there was a protest that would simply be stereotyping Asians as being good at science. So they changed it. No, I'm being serious. So they changed it to a white woman to be more generic, and then they got a huge backlash about them thinking a white woman would be generic, and the person in charge of I don't remember what his position is, but anyway, he was forced to make a public apology about putting a white woman on the $100 bill.
So they didn't want an Asian woman, and they didn't want a white woman. And he's the one that's apologizing.
I don't know. I mean, she's enough in the distance. I'm not sure if she looked Asian, she wouldn't as much look native. So I'm not sure why there was the initial thing that, they were stereotyping Asians as good at science by putting a female Asian-looking scientist picture, and it's not that big a picture, on the $100 bill. But yes, this whole thing has come up before. The whole debate about putting a woman on the bill was a big debate a few years back, and eventually they did put a woman on the bill, and then there was a fight over what her ethnicity would be. But yes, the tradition on Canadian currency is actually only monarchs and prime ministers.
Yeah.
And then generic scenes of accomplishments tied to Canada, with no particular person picked out. In fact, in some ways, it's very Canadian. You don't actually name or glorify any one particular person in Canadian history. You just show off the actual accomplishments themselves.
Right.
Actually, mostly, I think, a rather good policy, because if you go down to specific individuals, you're always going to get a fight over it. Even if you actually do them for a specific thing, then there's the whole fight over credits and who actually was responsible for getting things done.
All right, For currency, yeah, I could agree with that. That's not a bad policy.
But their problem there is that, yeah, they only have Kim Campbell as far as female prime ministers go. Mind you, they do have Queen Elizabeth II,
But
who
she's on every
is,
bill.
well, to a certain extent, but she only features prominently on the $20.
Alright.
I mean, the prominent picture is her on the $20, and then it's prime ministers on all the other ones. I mean, there's usually a watermark or something of the Queen on the other bills as well, or a holographic something. But yes, she's only featured prominently as the figure on one of them, I believe. But otherwise, I think it's sort of a bad precedent to set at that point, because you're sort of politicizing the money as opposed to just, things like the Canadarm and Canada's contribution to space, or discovery of insulin, or various beautiful landscapes that Canada has, or various animals that Canada has in flying majestically through the sky or wandering majestically through the prairies. But it does give the Liberal government something to do a poll about. They can ask the public's opinion about what women should be on there, and the CBC has jumped in the whole hog. They have a list of candidates up, and the place where you can go to propose your own candidates.
Yeah, I'm looking at these candidates right now. I had some candidates in my head personally that I could see as them putting on the bill, and none of them were these people.
Well, if they wanted to go to a true hero of Canada and somewhat a poke in the eye for the Americans, they could go for that woman who traveled that long distance to warn the Canadians that the Americans were coming and enabled them to actually defeat them.
I was thinking her. I was thinking also Margaret Atwood.
Oh, yeah, she's somewhat famous.
Yeah, she's somewhat famous. She actually had a strong contribution to Canadian literature. But the political activists that were active when women were allowed to vote in Canada, which, well, it's nice they were campaigning for that. The reason women were given the vote was because of Robert Borden and his insanely corrupt policies.
Well, often good things are done by bad people.
Yes, good things are done by bad people sometimes, but these two people had very little to do with getting women to vote.
Well,
Borden,
I can sort of see a case for the first woman elected to the Canadian Parliament. Although, really, that's not exactly her achievement. She is just simply a symbol of that achievement. But she is a symbol of the first woman who is elected to Parliament.
Even then, okay, Lucy Maud Montgomery, yeah, she wrote Anne of Green Gables, but outside of Anne of Green Gables, that was the only work she wrote that was considered good, or people know and remember. Mary Pickford, apparently she was an actress in Hollywood.
Oh, no. During her time period, she was incredibly famous. And as I believe they state somewhere in that article, she was one of the first women who actually took an interest in her own the business of being a Hollywood star, and actually made sure her contracts paid her what she was worth.
Yeah, she earned $1 million a year at that time. Good for her, but...
Yeah, I mean, she's not somebody who people really recognize nowadays unless they're really huge cinema buffs.
Yeah, Emily Carr? Group of 7 member modernist landscapers?
Oh yeah, she's a really famous West Coast artist. She's the one who does all that stuff, sort of inspired by Haida art.
Yeah.
Although, probably if she's nominated, there'd be a big argument about cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
Seeing as how she's a white woman who is effectively culturally appropriating in what is now considered a bad way from the Haida people.
And Viola Desmond, Canada's Rosa Parks after was fined and jailed for sitting in the whites-only section of a movie theater in New Glasgow in 1946. After losing various court proceedings and challenging the fine, she closed her business and left Nova Scotia for Montreal and later New York City, where she died.
Yes, well, the problem with that one is eventually she moved to the States because they were, well, at least the northern states were more friendly to black people than Canada was.
Yes.
At the time. And the other problem is that while they're comparing her to Rosa Parks led to a successful series of changes in the rules. And even then, she wasn't the first person to attempt to sit down in a whites-only section. She was just the first one which led to an actual series of protests, which led to actual changes.
Yes.
So she's not a direct equivalent, and she certainly isn't the first to do this.
Yeah, like, I can sort of see Emily Carr from this list they have, but everyone else, like, really? Really?
Well, that's the part, and why I sort of think it's much better off just to not politicize your currency. Although I suppose if you're constantly changing it with new whims of politics, it makes it a lot more collectible and gives people something to, store and trade.
Uh,
Although I'm really beginning to actually sort of dislike these plastic bills. I hope they're a lot cheaper to manufacture because once they rip,
they can never. That's it for them. Yeah.
Yeah, that rip will just get bigger and bigger and bigger until you have to replace it.
Uh, like, there's gotta be, like, we have already sort of two women that I think.
Oh dear, your microphone is breaking up a bit again.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you. It's just sort of bubbly.
Can you hear me now?
It's still bubbly.
Now?
Still a bit bubbly. Has your thing defaulted back to the other microphone or something?
It might have. Let's see here. Are we good now?
Nope.
Now?
Better, but still staticky.
Now?
Speak in sentences.
How about now?
Still staticky.
Oh well. This is how it's going to have to be.
Alright, I guess so. Actually, the longer you speak, and if it's a longer continuous sound, it actually sounds better, but if you haven't unplugged that other microphone, they might both be trying to pick up sound or something.
Yeah, no, they probably are.
So you really should unplug the other one and just not have it attached. Oh, now I can't hear you at all. Oh, well, I guess I get to entertain you with my lovely voice while Victor works on his microphone. Or possibly I could just have him phone me and hold my phone up to my microphone. Not that it's that great a microphone, quite frankly. But hopefully it isn't distorting. Alright. Oh, that's women on money. I don't know. I'm looking back at one of the older $2 bills from Canada. Sort of a, let's see, I think this is like 1950s. Yes, 1954. Has all that sort of scroll work that now only the American bills seem to tend to use. That spirograph stuff. Nice picture of the younger queen on the front face and just a pastoral scene on the back. Don't see a location. But overall, I mean, it's currency, and it really doesn't matter that much what the picture on it is, and I don't really have a problem with them putting women on the currency. I mean, it's just, I'm not sure having it be effectively even chosen by a referendum of the people or by political figures is that great a situation. Inevitably, it's going to result in somebody being put on the bill who's later found out to be not what we thought they would be historically. But then again, some of Canada's prime ministers aren't that wonderful people either, but they are Canada's prime ministers. I'm not sure Canada can really get around not having that many female prime ministers by just finding women who have done something good in Canadian history and then putting them on the bills instead. No, Victor is still muted. Can I unmute him? Nope. All right. I think I will give Victor a phone call. Cause this. Yep. Hello. Just a minute. All right. Speak now.
Whatever. My settings are screwed up. Let's just end the show. I think we've covered basically everything.
Yes, other than apparently me holding this phone up to my microphone, yes, we're pretty much done. Well, I guess that is the show for today.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Bye. Well, that's it for today. Maybe a show next week. We had meant to talk a little bit about the Ghostbusters trailer. And there's a wonderful fan re-edit, which makes it actually look like a interesting and exciting movie. So it may just be that their trailer was, well... Oh, getting that phone call from Victor. Hello?
So we're not ending the show?
I'm going to give it a bit of a wrap-up, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, phone me back when you're done to wrap up.
All right, bye. Actually, I'll probably put a link to that fan edit. Let's see. It was done by Bevan Bell. And it's actually, if that was the trailer, I'd be rather enthusiastic about seeing the movie. Let's see. Then I suppose there was the issue of Sarkeesian asking for more money to do a completely different video series about women in history. It'd be nice if she finished her original series, at least for those people who donated money. But I guess she has to earn a living somehow. Then there are going to be a few other issues, but I guess you'll have to go to other YouTube channels to hear all about it, because there's no shortage of people talking about these issues on the internet. Well, that's it for us today. Goodbye.